Good morning students. Welcome to online e-learning classes. This is your first period and the subject is history. Students, we are reading that is theme 2 from book 1. The theme name is Political and Economic History, How Inscriptions Tell a Story, Kings, Farmers and Towns. So this is the theme. Under this theme, today we are going to cover the following topics. New notions of kings, new notions of kinship, a changing countryside, towns and trade. So these are the three topics which are going to cover. So students, I hope both the students are watching this video carefully. So students, our topic is new notions of kingship. That is the first topic. So listen students, under this what is said here, chiefs and kings in south, chiefs and kings in south. The new kingdoms that emerged, in the Deccan and further south, the new kingdoms that emerged in Deccan, Plateau, Deccan and further south, including the chiefdoms of the Cholas, Cheras and Pandyas, including the chiefdoms of Cholas, Pandyas and Cheras in Tamilikam. Tamilikam, a word that indicates the name of ancient Tamil country. In ancient India, Tamil Nadu or Tamilikam is called one country. So Tamilikam means the Tamil country, which included parts. At the time in Tamil country, what are the places included? Present places at the time in Tamil country. They are Andhra Pradesh, present Andhra Pradesh, Kerala. Here Andhra Pradesh means what? Andhra and Telangana together. Andhra Pradesh means Andhra and Telangana together. So Andhra Pradesh, Kerala plus Tamil Nadu itself. So Andhra Pradesh, Kerala and Tamil Nadu itself, all three together is called Tamilikam or Tamil country in ancient India. Okay. Now this Tamil country was very much stable and prosperous. Why it is stable? Because the rulers, the kings, the chiefs are good. Their administration was good. Moreover, it is very prosperous because of agriculture production, trade and commerce. We know about these states. From a variety of sources. How you come to know about this is Tamilikam or Tamil country? Or how you come to know about Cheras, Cholas and Pandyas? So we know about the states from a variety of sources. Several sources are there. For instance, the early Sangam texts, books. The early Sangam texts contain poems. In the Sangam textbooks or texts, there are some poems are there. Some poems are composed earlier and they were written in Sangam texts. So contain poems. In that poems, they describe about the chiefs. The way and the ways in which they acquired and distributed resources. So in the Sangam text, some poems are there. Poems are composed. In that poems, it was described about chiefs and the ways in which they acquired and distributed resources. Many chiefs and kings, including the Satavahanas, who ruled over parts of western and central India between 2nd century BCE to 2nd century Common Era. Satavahanas ruled in western and central India from 2nd century BCE to 2nd century Common Era. And the Sakas, Sakas, a people of central Asian origin. A people of Sakas came from Central Asia. Central Asia origin who established kingdoms in the northwestern part of India, northwestern and western parts of the subcontinent. Sakas established their kingdom in the northwestern part and also the western parts of the Indian subcontinent. They derived revenues from long distance collecting revenue from long distance trade. Sakas, Satwan, they collected revenue from long distance trade. Their social origins were often obscure. I mean, exactly don't know how they originated. The social origins were always or often obscure. But as we will see in the case of Satavahanas in chapter 3, once they acquired power, they attempted to claim social status. After gaining power, they claim their social status in a variety of ways. Now, students, I am explaining who are chiefs or who were called chiefs and chiefdoms. So listen carefully, this is very, very important. Who are called chiefs or who were chiefs and chiefdoms? A chief is a powerful man. A chief is a powerful man whose position may or may not be hereditary. A chief is a powerful man. He is a powerful man whose position may be or may not be hereditary. Okay, you know what is meant hereditary, which comes through father. Okay, he derives support from his kinfolk. He is getting the support from his kinfolk, people. Now, what are the functions of the chief? This is a question. Who is chief? You have come to know. But what are his functions? His main functions are performing special rituals. I mean religious things, religious functions, rituals. And he will do the leadership in the warfare. Chief will do the leadership in the warfare. And also here arbitrating disputes. I mean solving disputes among the people. So three main functions: performing rituals, leading in the warfare, and also solving the disputes. Now he receives gifts. This chief receives gifts from his subordinates. He receives gifts from his subordinates and often distributes these gifts among his supporters. They receive gifts from his subordinates and again they distribute the same to his supporters. Generally, there are no regular armies and officials in chiefdoms. There is no regular armies and officials in the chiefdoms. Now students, now coming to the next one, divine kings. Next topic, divine kings. So who are divine kings? Whom we call divine kings? Listen carefully, students. Kings often tried, some kings often tried to identify themselves. Some kings often tried to identify themselves with a variety of deities. D-E-I-T-I-E-S, deities. For example, our local deity is Ma Danteshwari, like this. So some kings often identified themselves with a variety of deities in order to claim his status. Why they compared themselves as deities? In order to claim their status. This strategy, this method is best exemplified. Identifying themselves with deities, this strategy, this method is best exemplified by the Kusanas or Kushans or Kusanas, I can say. Okay, who ruled from 1st century BCE, up to 1st century Common Era. 1st century BC to 1st century Common Era, the Kusanas ruled over India. Who ruled over a vast kingdom. They ruled over a vast kingdom, extending from Central Asia to Northwest India. From Central Asia to Northwest India, this is the extent of the kingdom of Kusanas. Colossal statues of Kusana or Kushan rulers being found installed. Colossal statues which are made by the Kushan rulers are being installed in in a shrine. Shrine means what? A auspicious religious place. Dargah, for example, shrines, Ajmer, all these shrines. Shrines, or I can say religious place. Here, Madhanta say Dantewada is a shrine. Dantewada, Tirupati, all are shrines. Okay, installed in a shrine at Mutt, M-A-T, Mutt near Mathura. Mathura is where? In Uttar Pradesh. Now, this is the colossal statue. You might have seen. This is the colossal statue. Okay. So, now, by the 4th century, there is evidence of larger states. By the 4th century BCE, or we can say by the 4th century, there is evidence of larger states, including the Gupta Empire. Gupta Empire, everybody knows Gupta Empire. Okay, many of these depended on Samantas. During Gupta Empire, you will come to know about Samantas or Samant. In Hindi, we are called Samants. Okay, Samantas. These are the men who maintained themselves. Samantas are men who maintained themselves through local resources, including control over land. Samantas are the men who maintained themselves through local resources, including control over agricultural land. Now, students, here you see, I told you just now, by the 4th century there is evidence of larger states, including the Gupta Empire. Many of these depended on Samantas, men who maintained themselves through local resources, including control over land. They offered homage. These Samantas offered homage and provided military support to the rulers whenever necessary. Samantas always offered homage. Yearly they are giving some tribute in the form of gifts and money. In the form of gifts and money, they are giving tribute to the rulers because they are working under the control of kings. Samantas are ruling under the control of kings. So every year they are providing homage and also military support to the king whenever necessary. Yes, Samantas are just like feudal lords. You can compare it with feudal lords. Okay. And by maintaining the army or the naturally they are having control over land, resources, so they become more and more powerful. Even they become more powerful than the rulers sometimes. Okay, just like feudal lords, like I said. So powerful Samantas could become kings. Sometimes the Samantas only turned into what? Turned into kings. Okay. Conversely, weak rulers might find themselves being reduced to position of subordination. Sometimes Samantas became kings and kings became the subordinates of Samantas. See how the trend was changed. Now, histories of Gupta's rulers. If you know, histories of Gupta rulers have been reconstructed from literature. How you come to know about Gupta empires, Gupta rulers? Through literature, through coins and through inscriptions. You come to know, or we come to know, we study the history of Gupta rulers, Gupta empire through literature, through coins, through inscriptions, including what? Prasastis. Very, very important word, prasastis. Prasastis. What are prasastis? Prasastis composed in the praise of kings in a particular. Prasastis are nothing but they are composed in the praise of kings in particular and patrons in general. Patrons who are encouraging. Patrons by poets. Okay. While historians often attempt to draw factual information from such compositions. Historians derive their information from all these compositions, prasastis. Those who composed and read them often treasured. Those people who are able to read these compositions, they are given a lot of money, treasured them as works of poetry rather than as accounts that were literary true. The Prayaya Prasasti, one Prasasti name, different Prasastis are there. The Prayaya Prasasti, also known as what? Allahabad pillar inscription. The Prayaya Prasasti, otherwise called what? The Allahabad inscription or Allahabad pillar inscription, composed in Sanskrit. The Allahabad pillar, the Allahabad inscription was composed in Sanskrit. by what? Harisena. Harisena was the ruler. The court poet of Samudragupta. Harisena was the court poet of Samudragupta. I'm sorry. Harisena was the court poet of that Samudragupta. He is not the ruler, he is a court poet of Samudragupta. Samudragupta also got the title second Napoleon. Samudragupta. Okay. So arguably the most powerful of the Gupta rulers. Samudragupta was the greatest and the most powerful ruler of Gupta Empire. He is the most powerful ruler of Gupta Empire from in the 4th century Common Era. Okay, now in your textbook it is given here this box one about Prayaya Prasasti. Please student, do read this one. Whatever information was given in your boxes in the textbook, you have to read, because in the examination they are giving excerpts, okay, passages from these boxes only, blue boxes only. Now coming to next one, that is a changing countryside. A changing countryside. Now next we are going to another topic, that is called what? A changing countryside. Now, so changing countryside, what we will read on this one? First one, popular perceptions of kings. Popular perceptions of kings. Now, historians have tried to solve this problem by examining stories contained in what? Anthologies such as Jatakas and Panchatantra. I repeat, historians have tried to solve this problem. Which problem? The popular perceptions of king. They solve this problem by examining stories contained in anthologies such as what? Jatakas and Panchatantra. Now what are Jatakas? What are Jatakas? The Jatakas were written in Pali language. Jatakas are written in Pali language around the middle of 1st century Millennium Common Era. Jatakas are Jataka stories. Jatakas are nothing but stories. Panchatantra, just like Panchatantra stories. Okay. Vishnu Sharma wrote Panchatantra. Who wrote Panchatantra? Vishnu Sharma. Like that, Jatakas also stories. Okay. So these stories are written around that is first millennium Common Era. One story known as the Ganda Tindu, or yes, Ganda Tindu Jataka. One story known as what? Ganda Tindu Jataka describes the plight of the subjects of a wicked king. It describes about the wicked king. Ganda Jataka describes about the wicked king, a story. These included what? That is elderly women and men, cultivators, herders, village boys, and even animals. So in all the stories, you will come to know about cultivators, men, women, herders, animal herders, village boys, and even animals. Now, coming to next topic, strategies for increasing production. What are the strategies? What are the methods that are attempted by the people of the time in order to increase the production? So students, one such strategy was the shift of plough agriculture. You know plough. Plough helps in what? That is digging the soil, digging the earth. Okay, to do cultivation. So one such strategy was the shift of plough agriculture, which spread in fertile alluvial river valleys, such as those of the Ganga and the Kaveri from 6th century BC. So alluvial plains near the rivers or delta areas, they are very much useful for what? Agriculture. So plough was introduced. And with the introduction of plough in agriculture, the production was increased. While the iron plowshare, earlier the plough was used with the help of wood plowshare. Now they kept some iron thing near the tip of the plough. Okay. So while the iron plowshare led to the growth in agriculture productivity, when iron was added to the plough, then it can dig deeper into the soil. The deeper soils are what? Generally fertile. So the iron plowshare helped in what? Increasing the agricultural production. Okay, its use was restricted in certain parts only. Use of iron plough was restricted to certain parts of the subcontinent only, not everywhere. Now, differences in rural society. Differences in rural society. What are the differences that are found in the society in the rural areas? Differences that are found in rural areas. Stories, especially within the Buddhist tradition, stories within the Buddhist tradition refers to landless agricultural laborers. At the time, stories were written about what? Landless agricultural laborers, small peasants, as well as large landholders. So these are the three groups of people on which at the time stories were written in Buddhist, texts. The term Gahapati, students listen carefully, the term Gahapati, Gahapati, the term Gahapati was often used in Pali texts. The term Gahapati was often used in the Pali text to designate, the second and third categories. I repeat, the term Gahapati was often used in Pali texts to designate the second and third categories. Now, the early Tamil literature, I told the Sangam text, the early Tamil literature, which is was Sangam text, also mentions different categories of people living in the villages. In the Sangam text, it was mentioned what different category people who are living in the rural areas. Who are they? Large landowners or Vellalar. Remember students, very very important word. Large landowners in Tamil Nadu or Tamilkam. Large landowners in Tamilkam or Tamil Nadu or Tamil country, that are called Vellalars. Plowmen, or we can say Uzavar. Plowmen are called Uzavars. Large landowners, Vellalar. Plowmen are called Uzavars. And slaves are also called as what? What? Adimai. A-D-I-M-E-I. Adimai. Now, I'll give some more information about what? The Gahapati. A Gahapati was the owner. A Gahapati was the owner and master of Gahapati was the owner or master, I can say, or master. A Gahapati was the owner, master or head of the household. A Gahapati was the owner, master or head of the household. Head of the family, Gahapati is the head of the family, owner, head of the family, who exercised control over the women, children and workers. Naturally, head of the family is having control over the other people in the family. Control over the women, wife, children and also workers who are working in their house. Okay, next one. Land grants and new rural elites. Another topic, land grants and new rural elites. From the early centuries of the Common Era, we have found grants of land being made, many which were recorded in the inscriptions. The records that have survived are generally about grants to religious institutions or to Brahmanas. At the time, rulers used to give grants, grantinades, and they gave grants mostly to Brahmanas, Brahmin people and also some religious institutions. The inscriptions also gives us an idea about, inscriptions gives us idea about the history, idea about, the inscriptions also gives us idea about rural populations. Okay, these included Brahmanas and peasants as well as others who expected to be or expected to provide a range of produce to the king or his representatives. Who are the representatives of the king? Here what? That is chiefs. Okay, now or Samantas I can say. Land grants such as this one have been found in several parts of the country. There were regional variations in the sizes of land, donated ranging from small plots. They gave the land as a donation. Sometimes they give small plots, sometimes they give what? Stretches of uncultivated land. Sometimes they give small plots of fertile land. And sometimes the kings used to give vast stretches of uncultivable land and rights given to donees, D-O-double-E-N-S, donator. Okay, I'm the donator means what? I'm the donee. Okay, donees. Okay, land grants provide some insight into the relationship between the cultivators and the state. Now, towns and trade. This is the last topic, students. Listen carefully. Towns and trade. Trade means what? Business. So we will come to know what are the important towns at the time and how the trade was conducted at that time. Now, new cities. First, I'll tell about new cities. The urban centers emerged in several parts of the subcontinent. Urban centers means what? Trade centers. Several urban centers emerged in several parts of the subcontinent from 6th century BC. Virtually all major towns, were located along routes of communication to Patliputra. Patliputra means modern Patna. Patliputra were on riverine routes. Patliputra is a place, modern Patna is located on the bank of the river, so it is a riverine. So at the time, ancient time, rivers are the mode of communication, and also land routes also are there. Others such as Ujjaini, first one is Patliputra is one of the urban center, such as Ujjaini, okay, where along the land routes, and yet others such as what? Puhar, Puhr, Puhar, were near the coast, from where the sea routes origin. Generally, you know, all the rivers are joining into the sea. So people are traveling rivers to sea sometimes if they want to go to abroad. Now urban populations, elites and craftsmen. Urban population, elites and craftsmen. Elite means what? Educated people, well-known people, and crafty person, crafty people. These include fine pottery, bowls and dishes. The craft people, they prepare pottery and dishes with a glossy finish, okay, known as northern black polished ware. Northern black polished ware. Ware means what? Your pots. Okay, probably used by rich people. And ornaments, tools, weapons, vessels. Ornaments, tools, weapons, vessels. Okay, and figurines. Okay, statues made of a wide range of materials like gold, silver, copper, bronze, ivory, glass, shell, and terracotta. Terracotta is what? Here, mud. Sometimes guilds means what? A group of workers, a union of workers. Sometimes or group of trade people. Sometimes guilds and srenis, organizations of craft, producers and merchants are mentioned as well. These guilds probably procured raw materials. They procured raw materials, regulated production. Who are trade guilds? You are studying class 10 students. So these trade guilds, they procure raw materials, regulated production, controlled prices, and marketed the finished goods or finished products. Now, trade in the subcontinent and the beyond. Trade in the subcontinent and the beyond. From the 6th century BC, land and river routes crisscrossed the subcontinent and extended in the various directions over land into Central Asia and beyond the overseas. So our trade was with Central Asian and some other countries. From ports, they dotted the coastline. Those who traveled these routes included peddlers. Peddlers means what? Those who are moving from one place to another. Peddlers who probably traveled on foot. They traveled on foot. Okay, foot, and merchants who traveled with caravans. Caravan means what? When people are going in the form of group from one place to another. Caravans on bullock carts. Caravans, they move from bullock carts. These were what? Seafarers whose ventures were risky. Seafarers, they are going through trade, do trade through sea. Sometimes sea traveling is very difficult. You have seen the Pirates of Caribbean Sea. Okay, like that. So risky but highly profitable. Risky but wherever risk is there, their profits will be there. Okay, successful merchants designated as what? Okay, they designated what? Masuan. Okay, in Tamil, and Settis. Masuan in Tamil. Some rich merchants are called Masuan in Tamil, and Settis and what? Satvahans in Prakriti. Now last topic, that is kings and coins, or coins and kings. Students, very important, coins and kings. Punched marked coins. If punch means what? There will be coin, in that there will be hole. Coins with a hole in the middle. Okay, coins with hole in the middle. Punched marked coins made of silver and copper in the 6th century Common Era onwards were amongst the early to be minted and used. So first they minted punched marked coins at that time. Punched marked coins. Numismatics. What is numismatics? Study of coins. Numismatics is the study of coins. So numismatics and the people who study coins are called numismatists. Numismatists. So numismatists have studied these and other coins to reconstruct possible commercial networks. Attempts were made to identify the symbols on punch marked coins. There are several symbols on punch marked coins, and numismatists always try to identify these symbols to know that, to get the information, to gather the information. Okay, to attempts were made to identify the symbols on Panchamar coins with specific ruling dynasty. Suppose Gupta rule, Kusan rules. So Kusan they kept their symbols, Gupta they kept their symbols on their coins. Okay, suggested that they were issued by the kings. So why they kept the images? So that it indicate these coins are issued by the particular kings, particular dynasty kings. The first gold coins were issued in 1st century BCE. Oh, sorry. The first gold coins were issued in the 1st century Common Era by the Kusans or Kusanas. So gold coins in India were used by Kusanas. Okay, these were virtually identical in weight with those issued by the contemporary Roman emperors. In the world, Romans were used gold coins first. In India, Kusans, particularly Kanishka rule, when the Kanishka rule was there, so Kusan they introduced gold coins. So these coins are similar to the Roman gold coins. Okay, and the Parthians, rulers of Iran. Parthians, where are Parthians? Iran. You are studying in class 11th. Some of the most spectacular gold coins were issued by Gupta rulers also. Sometimes we are calling golden age of Gupta. Even Gupta rulers also used gold coins, but first used by Kusans. Okay, Kanishka ruler. The earliest issues are remarkable for their purity. So thank you, students. This is the end of today's topics. Thank you. Stay connected.